Hi, everybody, and welcome to this month's fan meetups from Fan Expo Canada session. We're talking about Dungeons and Dragons as per usual. And I'm Jeremy Johnston. I'm your Fan Meetups ambassador, but I'm also one of the administrators from Unite the Factions, a group local to the Greater Toronto area that focuses on running Dungeons and Dragons Adventures League's events. Just like before I introduce my co-host, just like to mention that this is meant to be a family-friendly environment. So if we can keep that in mind, that would be great. And go for it, Ange.
So I'm Angelo Corsino. I am also Unite the Factions Administrator. I help Jeremy run events all over the Greater Toronto area and some other parts of Southern Ontario. And recently, since branching out online, we've basically run for events all over the US and one in England and all over the place
Yeah,
as part of
Sweden,
online D&D.
yeah, Philippines, Australia. Yeah, we got people from almost every continent that have joined us. Well, I don't think we were ever going to get Antarctica.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
Yeah, so I think really it might just be Africa that we're missing.
Oh, okay. I actually didn't know that. Cool. Uh,
Yeah.
so with that, today we're going to be talking about general Roll20 use and how to basically use Roll20 enough to play online.
So let's start with what is Roll20, Angelo?
Well, Roll20 is a virtual tabletop in which you can play a whole bunch of different RPG games, but we use it mainly for Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition, and sometimes we use it for Star Wars sagas.
Sometimes, like yesterday.
Yeah.
But you can basically use it however you like. It supports almost every role-playing game you can think of, and with enough time and ingenuity, you could make it work with any tabletop or war game that you would like to play.
Yep.
It is free to use, and it gives you some extra features if you subscribe, which is really suited more for a game master or a dungeon master, as we like to say in D&D. But feel free to either ask questions in the chat. We'll do our best to monitor it. But of course, we've given everybody the ability to jump in, using their microphone if they'd like to ask a question. So we're going to start talking first about using Roll20 for Dungeons and Dragons from a player and character point of view. So Angelo, if you could share your screen, I'm going to be handling the Dungeon Master side of things to kind of show everyone, a little bit of back and forth in between what we're looking at. Okay, so hopefully everyone can see the screen here. If you're using Chrome or a similar browser, if you hit F11 on your keyboard, you should be able to see full screen for what we're looking at. And if you click into the main area, you could either right click to show controls on the browser that we're looking at right now, and there is the small kind of square button where you can make what's being presented full screen. Because you are using a very high-res monitor, Angelo.
Sometimes, yes.
Okay, so what are we looking at? We're looking at someone who's logged into Roll20 to a game. This is a game that's part of an adventure series called The Ghosts of Saltmarsh, which is a game that actually Angelo and I are playing. He is a player and I'm a dungeon master, so that's why I'm having him show you what's happening here. So let's just do a basic once over from left to right, if you can tell people what they're looking at on screen.
All right, so there's a few little things that you can play with as a player when you're on Roll20. So you have this toolbar up here in the top left that has a bunch of things that you can do. The first function is the mouse pointer. So you're going to use this to do things like pick up your token and move around the map. Other things that you have are the draw shapes, where you can do things like draw on the map and annoy your dungeon master. Don't worry, it's completely fine. They can always delete it at any time if it gets too annoying. You can also do things like drawing shapes and all sorts of things. Good for dropping those fireballs and such. You
Yeah,
can also,
and it's easy to delete things by just hitting the delete key.
yep.
And if you're familiar with Microsoft Word's commands like copying and pasting and deleting, those also work. And you can right click on things as well to get a context sensitive menu telling you what you can do to it.
Also, there's the ever useful
Ruler.
ruler, which is good for marking how far you are from things on the map. There's two different kinds. There's snap to center, which will take the center point of your square and go for a distance. If you're measuring things like a radius, though, what you want is the second one, which is snap to corner, because that way you can pick a point and get exactly that 20-foot radius for fireball.
Yeah, we promote fireballs for all situations.
Underneath that, there is the basic dice roller, where you can roll up to 5 of any of the dice, including D100. No one's really quite sure what this fudge means, but it's a thing that you can roll. The other things you can do in here are you can click this to roll specifically only to the GM. So, for example, if I do this box here in yellow shows that it's only the GM can see it. None of the other players can. For if you need to hide a roll for something like you betraying your allies.
That would never happen.
No, that would never happen, Jeremy, never. Beyond that, so now we go to what you can see on the screen. You have your map area window, which has a whole bunch of different tokens on it. This is our adventuring party from our Wednesday night games of Ghost of Saltmarsh. At the bottom of the screen, you can see the DM is usually the one on the far left, and then you have your players that would be all along this bottom bar. Now, getting to that, we bring ourselves up to the top right corner of the map where we have our chat window, which you can type in to say hello. You can type kind of like what we like to call, to get everybody's attention. You type /ME, and then you can type something, and it pops out to make it look like a little bit easier for everyone to see. You have the journal tab, which has your character and anything else that the GM lets you see will be in this tab. In my games, that will be everybody's character tokens, all the handouts you need, and everything like that. Jeremy likes to keep things a little closer to the chest. What you also can have, if your GM is cool, is a whole bunch of effects, and we'll just pick one at random.
What's that? Fireball.
There's one on the map. No.
Amazing.
Yes, random, Diana, random. Beyond that, you the whole bunch of different other tabs that can be depending on what your GM has loaded into the compendium. Music tab that you could possibly have as to be part of your games. I've used it once or twice. It's not entirely critical. Yeah. And most importantly, the settings, because this is where you're going to do things like when you open a Roll20 game for the first time, odds are you're going to have something like this on the screen where you've got these big boxes that take up a lot of space. So as soon as you enter the game and you click on this gear tab and you go to here and select names only, it clears up the screen nicely for you.
Yeah. Another thing while we're here is your display name.
Yeah, that was where I was getting to next.
Yeah.
So right now I have it set up as what I would want it to, which is my character name, my name in brackets so that people know who it belongs to. And I'm scrambling it now because of course I am. Then some interesting things that you're going to want to put in this as well. Jeremy, what's useful to a DM?
Well, we want to know your armor class, your passive perception, and your DC for spell casting. So your difficulty check. So that way, if you're casting spells and I have to save for it, I can quickly look over there and see. If I'm rolling dice to have a monster try to hit you, it's only going to be showing that in the chat log as Dungeon Master most of the time because I like to hide the rolls. But I can then easily say, that arrow that is being shot from the crossbow, narrowly misses you, or they slash you with their sword and crinkle your armor. I don't have to say, what's your AC? Did it hit? Um, so yeah, it's pretty useful. And as DM, I do like to see the player avatars, and the important thing to remember is that the avatar that is shown in the bottom left screen with your name will be your Roll20 account icon or avatar. Some people like to keep them in sync with the game that they're playing. I find it quite useful as DM that I can, especially in a convention setting, or if I'm dealing with new people, that if their avatar for Roll20 looks like the token that they have on screen, then that's really going to help me, kind of zero in on who they are and what they're doing. You'll also notice that in the where your name is, there's also a color,
Mm-hmm.
and you can
My
actually
my
change that
usual
color.
default purple.
But it is also, whenever you're using any of the tools that use colors, like the ruler or selecting things, it will show your color. So that's, again, kind of useful for someone that's organizing the game. And, the next thing you might be wondering is, how do I create a token? So let's talk about tokens for a sec. So there's a whole part. I've changed the map as Dungeon Master. As a player, Angelo has no control over that. But if you want to zoom in on the tokens, uh, you can do that by scrolling with your mouse wheel, or there is a plus and minus at the top right of the map grid area.
While we're on that, there's two functions you can have your mouse wheel to, either zoom or pan, and it's personal preference. I personally like to use it to pan.
Ah, okay. I like it to zoom, because then I can actually just click my middle mouse wheel and use it to pan, which is usually true in almost any application. But the part of the reason why I switched the map is the first screen, usually when you're creating a game as a dungeon master, is kind of like a landing page. It's useful to put the cover of the adventure or some, cool art to get people in the mood to play before you get to something like a gridded map like this. So what we're actually looking at here is a purchased module from Roll20. It basically comes with the full book, all the maps, all the monsters, all the treasure, all the handouts, as curated from the book and built by Roll20 developers. So you could potentially, without owning the book, have all the content available to you as a dungeon master and have the whole game built for you. But we'll also go over a little bit later how you can build your own maps and monsters and all that sort of stuff. But to get us back to these player tokens, by default, when you create a character, and I'll create one right now, and I'll drag it on here, and I'll make it available to all players so that Angelo can see it on screen and move it around. You get this kind of default
Meeple.
one squared, purple meeple. But that's not fun. So what you can do is, if you click, let's say, on this new character that we have, and I'm going to change their name.
You don't like the name Yest Irabru?
No, I'm going to use a cooler name.
Okay.
So we're going to use Telemont Tanthul.
Yeah, I had a feeling it was going to be one of yours.
Well, no, actually, it's not.
No, that isn't yours. That's right. That's the other one.
This is canon. So Telemont Tanthul is a pretty interesting guy. And, maybe if we were to look for some art of Telemont Tanthul on Google or something like that, maybe we could use it to make a token.
Do you want to switch to your screen so that they can see how to make a token?
Yeah, sure. I don't mind doing that at all.
I'll stop sharing for now then.
All right. So I'm going to share my entire screen.
Behind the scenes.
Yes. So now you're going to see everything that I'm doing. Aha. Okay, so first I'm going to search for Telemont. Oh, I've searched for Telemont before.
Can't imagine why.
Go figure. Ooh, I like this image. Okay, this is one of my, oh yeah, that's a much better looking version of it. So I'm just going to save that image to my downloads folder. And then I'm going to go to my favorite place to make tokens.
It's really the easiest one to use. Token stamp. Token stamp is roll advantage token stamp.
Yeah, and I just
So,
put it in the chat there for you. And then the really cool thing is I can just drag this image right here from where I've downloaded it, and then I can start manipulating it. Yeah, so I want a really good amount of.
And nobody wants the default ring.
No, I don't want the default ring. Other things that you can change to, you can change the border tint if you want. Not that I'm going to use it, but you can also change the background color if you had like a transparent image, or if you had an image with a background and when you were trying to size it, it didn't really, fit the entire circle. And some people like to show, art that looks directly at, the front and facial features of the character. And actually, some people prefer to make tokens where you have a bird's eye view, since most of the time you're using a map that has that same view.
Yep.
So you can use like whatever you like. But I'm going to set a custom border, and I have my own little border directory set and ready to go. I love this kind of color of border. It kind of matches the ones that are from Roll20.
They actually have that one in token stamp.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah, so if you go to the top left and click on that circle there, it's
there. It is. Yeah, same one.
That's the one I always use as well.
All right, excellent. Yeah, so now I've downloaded it, and if I go here, I can look at Telemont Tanthul, and while my view is slightly different from the player, if you have access to a player, you can click Edit, and then you'll have this avatar section right here. And then I can just grab that token, drop it on there. I now have an avatar that doesn't look like a purple meeple, and I can save it. And then I'm just going to click on this, right click, choose delete, and then I'm going to click on my name and drag it over here and drop it. Doesn't always drop it where you want to, so sometimes you need to move it around. And then when you're playing, you can use your mouse to pick up, clicking and holding on your token and moving it around. But one other thing that I prefer doing, more like a video game, is I like to use arrow keys or the cursor keys that are on your keyboard, and then you can, like move around.
Hard to do diagonals, though.
It is hard to do diagonals, correct.
So the other thing that you can do is since it's on Jeremy's screen now, you'll be able to see what it looks like on someone, because you guys saw me kind of clicking around with the click drag. So if you pick up a token and you hold the mouse button down, the left mouse button, and then you right click wherever you want to go, it will set rally points.
I'm clicking every time I'm moving.
And then you can see like what happens when I let go.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. So, oh, we were both using it. Very nice.
So when you hold, so basically it allows you to show the exact distance of how far you're moving on the screen if the DM is using 5-foot squares, which they probably should be, unless they've gigantic map. Yeah. And then when you let go, it goes for a run.
So other than having tokens, obviously you're going to want to use the character sheets. So again, if you click on a character that you have in the journal section that has the newspaper icon here, when you click on character sheet, you will be given the option to use something called the Character Mancer, which is their built-in tool for building characters. Now, if you don't buy the official Dungeons and Dragons content, the options are limited to what you'll find in the SRD or the free basic rules. And basically, it's a step-by-step process where you can choose your race, and then you can choose, I guess your alignment. I'm going to choose brewer tools. My subrace is going to be Hildorf. So I am kind of using SRD content right now, just because that's probably what you guys will see. I'm going to be a fighter, which is probably one of the easiest things to do. I want athletics and I want perception. I'm going to choose a fighting style of great weapon fighting because I'm a dwarf, yo.
Two-handed swinging.
Yeah, definitely. I want, let's say, point by. I want a really high strength.
For two-hand swinging.
That's right. I don't care about my dexterity. I want a decent constitution. I want a really high constitution. And decent there, and maybe my wisdom can be better. Yeah, that looks good to me. Gonna choose a background. What do we got here that's cool? Oh, I'm gonna be a knight. Yeah, 2 proficiencies. I'm gonna play 3 Dragon Ante so I can actually pull out my 3 Dragon Ante set. And I already speak Dwarvish.
Usually,
so,
dwarf.
But screw Elvish and Common. I'm gonna speak Orc because I want to be able to curse at my enemies. Assuming I'm gonna run into orcs. Okay, I'm gonna skip personality.
But yeah, you can all throw that all in there as well. It's nothing wrong with that. Everybody wants their personality.
Yeah, you can do your class equipment and all that kind of stuff. I'll take chainmail. I want a great axe, and I want a warhammer, hand axes, and a dungeoneer's pack. Okay. I don't have spells. Don't have feats. Review. Apply changes. Building my character. Yep. All right. So got my character. He's good to go. Doesn't look, and yeah, it's got my hit points all ready to go. It's really good. When I want to do attacks, I'll be able to use, just like a standard character sheet, I'll be able to click and use these, and then they're going to show up in the chat window here. So I'm going to swing my Warhammer two-handed. Beautiful roll. Just beautiful. Now, if I want the damage, I'm just going to click in the chat window on the Warhammer. And then it's going to give me 10 bludgeoning damage.
Yep. So what else you can do is you can have it set to roll damage automatically as well by clicking on that in your Roll20 sheet. So there's that. If you want to switch it back and do it, I can.
Yeah, sure.
All right.
Yeah, because the other thing too is that I don't even think you are seeing my rolls because I have all my rolls set to DM.
Oh, really? Yeah, that makes sense. So hold on, let me go to. No, I could see your rolls actually on the.
Okay.
So we're going to click on.
Oh, the blue color was evident that it was public. I think it's kind of that peachy color.
All right, so on your Roll20 sheet, if you click on this gear in the top right, so you have core, bio, spells. You don't have any spells as a fighter, but if you did, they would be in here. And then this gear. And this gear has all of your stuff that you're going to want to potentially tweak for making things better in game. Personally, I always query when I roll because I want it to ask me if I want advantage or disadvantage, and then I always want it to auto roll damage and criticals. So now when you go back to click on something like a Warhammer, it'll ask you advantage, disadvantage, normal roll. Say I want to roll with advantage, it'll do that for me. And it'll put the damage in there automatically.
I really should have made this guy a wizard. But that would have taken longer, and that's not the point of our exercise today. So let's say you don't want to use the Roll20 character sheets because you don't want to buy your D&D stuff all over again.
For the third time for a lot of people.
Potentially. So maybe you have D&D Beyond. So without going into it too much or giving a demo of how to use D&D Beyond, if you have a D&D Beyond character sheet and you have a extension in your browser called Beyond 20 installed, then you can do your rolls on your D&D Beyond sheet and have them show up in Roll20.
Like this.
Yeah. Amazing. A firebolt. Okay, not quite a fireball, but all right.
No, that was a pretty bad damage roll. Pretty bad damage
Yeah,
roll.
but for those of you that find that we're going a little fast or anything like that,
Yeah, please chime
uh,
in. I'm actively paying attention to the chat window, so if you have questions
perfect.
or
And the other thing too is if you join our Discord server for Unite the Factions, we have a getting started area where we do have some, places to kind of get you started. And of course, we have lots of channels for people to ask questions on character advice or for general help. And again, our Getting Started channel has links to pretty much everything we're talking about here today. Okay, so moving on from characters, there's one last thing we have to mention, the character vault. Okay, if you are storing your characters on Roll20, you're going to want to use the character vault. So if you exit a game on Roll20,
here, you switch it back to you so you can show it.
yeah, no problem. So if you exit a game, so I'll just go to the top here from the settings. Under tools for Roll20, there's something called the character vault. So here you can access characters from one game that you've played.
You haven't
and
re-enabled screen sharing, by the way, Jeremy.
Oh, all right. Good call. Sharing my screen. Okay. So if you go to tools, you go to character vault here from the top of the Roll20 after exiting a game, you can import a character from any game you've got. So I'm going to find my Telemont guy here. There he is. And I'm going to import that character. Now when I go to my vault, I can look for Telemont. He's there. And I can actually choose another game to export him to, and another game on Roll20. So if I'm playing with different dungeon masters, or if I'm carrying a character in between different modules, I can do so using the vault. And then I can also delete something from the vault. But we create a lot of pre-generated characters for our events, and that's why you see a lot of pre-gens on my vault, as well as
Official D&D Adventure League Tier 2 pre-gens.
That's right. And we have tier 1s as well. Just a couple. We got some more elsewhere, but haven't had to use them too much because people love making characters. And it's easy to make one for free, either in Roll20 using the SRD or D&D Beyond using the SRD for free. All right, so I'm going to go back into my game, and the next thing we wanted to cover was monsters. So I'm going to launch this game.
Hi, I have a question about the character vault thing. So if you've set up a room and you've created like your pre-gens in just blank character sheets, would you, if you copy the room, would that get copied along with the room?
Yes.
Okay.
You can set it to copy whatever is in the room when you copy it.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, but when building a new room, for example, that's when, as dungeon master, you might want to import things.
Yeah.
So, and I'm going to show you a really cool way and an easy way to do that a little later on when we finish off with our tips and tricks.
Awesome.
But yeah, feel free to chime in with questions whenever you like. We love questions for sure. All right, so I'm in Dungeon Master view right now. So we're going to kind of give you a behind the scenes look for those of you that might be used to being players. So for example, one thing I need to start with is layers. So as a Dungeon Master, I have 3 layers. I have the map layer, where I can actually move the map. Oof, not a good idea. Control Z for undo. I can go to the objects layer, which is generally where most of the play is happening, where the tokens for the characters are. And you'll notice that if I, as Dungeon Master, switch between layers, it kind of grays out things that are not on that layer. And then lastly, I can go to the Dungeon Master's layer, which is where I like to keep the monsters, because I can select a whole bunch of monsters, and then if I want to make them visible, I can right click and move them to the token layer, and then say that famous phrase, roll for initiative, and click on the little timer here, and then people can start rolling initiative. So as a Dungeon Master, you're going to see a lot more going on with monsters than you would as a player. For example, you'll notice that when I'm looking at a monster, and I'll zoom in here, and maybe I should switch to pen. Okay, so here is a giant weasel. It says that it has 9 out of 9 hit points, but the players don't see the health bar at all unless I want them to, and they certainly do not see the number of hit points that they have left. Like any token, player or monster, when you click on a token, it'll have 3 circles at the top. You can use these circles to store numbers, and these circles can do math for you as well if you're not fond of math. So if you click into one of these and you type like -2 and hit enter, it goes from 7 to 9. It's a thing of beauty. The only problem is
your character tokens as well.
Oh yeah, this is for all tokens. The only problem is if I say +12, it's not going to realize that there's a maximum there. So just keep that in mind. But you can use those to be any numbers you want, but generally green is for health and blue is for armor class. Red is sometimes used as a tracker or for temporary hit points.
I like to use the red and blue bubbles personally for things like Bardic Inspiration uses available, or Arcane, or what's called Abjurer Ward, or things that are you need to track that are on the screen. Sometimes lay out Paladin, lay out hands, that sort of thing.
For counters. Yeah, that's a really good idea. So you have 2 items here. One's a gear. I'll go into that second. The next one is icons. So whether it's for monsters or players, again, you have all of these features available to you if you have control of the token. So you can put little flags on yourself using these colors. And you can use little icons, which you could use for status. So maybe you're stealthy, you look like a ninja, or maybe you're pinned down under a net, or maybe you're dead, or this kind of dead. You can use whatever you like. Maybe you're stunned.
I like to use the clock for when I'm concentrating on something.
Maybe you're flying. Now, the other thing that's cool is, you can add a whole bunch of these. It kind of gets messy after a while, but, you can have more than one. And last but not least, when clicking on any of these things, if you type the number keys from 1 to 0, you can put numbers on them. So you can't put 15. If I hit 1-5, it just uses one number at a time. But for example, I like using it for flight.
With wings,
so
yeah.
If someone's 30 feet in the air, I'll just say they're 3. That sort of thing. But giant weasels don't fly, so see you later.
They could, but they don't normally.
No, they don't normally. But this is D&D. Anything's possible. Okay, so this is what a Dungeon Master sees when they go into a monster. So it's going to be a little bit less complicated, but I figured I'd show this so that you can understand that if you're seeing something or you're not seeing something, maybe you need to talk to your Dungeon Master to help things along. So there's these little ... menus that are going to be where you can show players things, okay? So in general, I want people to be able to see the nameplate, okay? And then I can save that. Other things, if I want people to see a health bar, sure, they will see the health bar. They will never see the numbers on it, but, they can see the health bar. And just as a pro tip, you could tie this to any number of values that are within Roll20, including hit points, related to where this is from. And if you type, it goes directly to where you want to go. And then that'll tie it to the character sheet. Other cool things that you might want to show. are these auras. So let's say you're a paladin and you have a 10-foot aura. You can show it like that. You can change the color. And again, if you
Purple
want
usually stands out really well on most maps. I recommend purple.
All right. I like purple. It feels Netherese. And then, maybe you're casting light, and OMG, light is 20 feet, and then it's 40 feet dim. Whoa, light is a powerful spell, folks. It really is. Oh my gosh. Like it's lighting up everything. It's also telling people that you're coming. So I like it as a DM.
The other good one, is Spirit Guardians. Anything that's going to put an aura around you that follows you.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, I know. Jeremy's got fancier stuff in his rooms.
Yeah, so we went on to Spirit Guardians, yo. So we went on to dmsguild.com, where all the best Adventures League content is, but they also have tokens that you can use on any tabletop. And so we bought these and imported them into our basic template that we then use to copy and create all of our rooms. So pro tip, put everything you want in like a basic, Roll20 game or room, however you like to call it, and then just keep tweaking it over time as you learn more about the tool. And whenever building a new room, just copy it, and you'll have everything you want good to go. Let's see here. I'm just looking at my show notes. And if you're a dungeon master, just another tip with monsters, you could, if you have all of the content on D&D Beyond, or if you just prefer doing it there, you can certainly roll from D&D Beyond for any of the monsters.
But if you have the Beyond 20 browser extension.
Exactly, yeah. So if I click Bite, it's going to show up here, and it's going to send it just to me as the dungeon master. So wow, rolling 18 to hit. Wow, that's definitely gonna.
You can set it as the DM to roll in the open as well if you wish. That's what I do. I like to roll in the open personally.
Well, when it's close to TPKing with me so many times, I tend to fudge the rolls so that we can continue playing and not cry.
Yeah, there's totally not anybody that's in our chat right now who definitely didn't take 33 damage at level 1 a couple nights ago.
Brutal. So, but if you've bought the content in Roll20, then you can see all the creatures and monsters that are there. Now, just another tip here. I know we've been kind of bouncing all around, but you can create folders, which is what I'm kind of clicking beside with the the plus sign and the minus sign. And as DM, you'll notice that anything with a blue dot is going to be visible to everybody. And then there's probably all these creatures and monsters don't have dots, so no one's going to be able to see them, and therefore will not be able to see the folder either.
Yeah, so if you guys remember when you were seeing my screen, I could only see a couple of the tokens, whereas the DM obviously could see everything.
Yeah, but as again, this is a purchase module, so it comes with everything you need to use it. And of course, last but not least, whenever you click initiative, everybody always remember to click your token first.
Mm-hmm. Including the DM.
Including the DM, because when you're bouncing around all these different sheets, it can get real busy real fast. And I like to use one monitor. I know that Angelo and most other people like 2 monitors, but so usually I'll just pop that out to another window, and then I can quickly get it from my bottom Explorer bar in Windows, and it makes it easy for kind of alt tabbing in between it, which I love to do when switching in between stuff. And it's up to you. When things die, some people like to just leave the token on the map and kill it. Me personally, I like to just delete things.
And then it loses the initiative tracker, and he wonders why it happens to him all the time.
Well, I roll for each individual weasel usually, so I don't usually run into that problem. But if you're the type of DM that likes to roll once for a specific type of creature or monster, then you'll definitely not want to delete them.
Yeah, I'm bad
So,
DM. I roll once. If there's a lot of them, I'll roll, sometimes split them in half, but usually I just roll one.
but when you edit undo, it doesn't bring them back into the turn order.
It does not.
But the cool thing is, if you ever get stuck, a lot of people, like I said, forget to click their token. You can always click a token, click add turn, adds them to the turn order, and then you can just type in what their initiative was, and then use the gear here to sort it.
And as players, you can always edit your own if you did it wrong, for example. Like I just changed
Cool.
mine to 15. I can change mine to 45 if I want and see if the DM
Cheater, cheat. Okay, I'm going to use the GM shaft and call down lightning on you. Okay, so moving on from monsters, we wanted to talk about, some more stuff about maps. So when you're a player, you don't really have control of the map. I mean, you can move around and stuff, but what's really happening is the Dungeon Master has this little page toolbar, and they can move you around a whole bunch of pages. So if I click on a page, as Dungeon Master, I go to that page, but you'll notice that there's this little banner here that says where the players are. You can pick that up, and you can put players there too, and then they'll be able to see it. But always remember your layers. From this toolbar on the left, you got a cube where you can look at your map, your objects, and your GM layer. So stuff like numbers that are on maps, if you have purchased a module, or like me, if I'm building my own module, I always like to put the room number. So when I'm referencing the book, when it's open beside me on the table or in another tab, if I'm reading D&D Beyond, I can kind of swap between them. And when someone walks into a room, I kind of know where they are, but I don't want them to know what that number is or where the secret door is. So, I'll put the S's and the numbers, kind of all over the place for me to see alone. So it's cool, to put maps as full pages of, just generally drawn maps. And then, like we've been looking at as well, it's obviously the reason why we're using a virtual tabletop at all, to have, like a battle map. So for example, this one, which is not my preference, has, kind of the ground floor here, the first floor, there as well. I usually prefer to split them and then just move people in between them. Whatever your preference. I mean, if it's a really small map, I guess it makes sense, but whatever you're comfortable with. So I'm going to exit out of this game for a sec. I'm going to go to a game that I built. Games.
I think you did that one, but that looks like it was
Yeah, I did all the DRWs.
Okay,
so this is an Adventure League module, Dreams of the Red Wizards #5. And so, sometimes, you can find some cool maps on Google that people have made available for free. Some other dungeon masters made some maps and added them here. So I'm going to create a page and show you how that's done just quick. So you get an empty grid when you create a new page. When you go to the page toolbar, you can click the name of that page, and then you can give it a name. I'll call this map 2. And then, well, you're going to need a map. So let's go see if we can find a map of something. So
biggest pro tip that I can give you as a DM on Roll20 is when you're looking for maps, find ones without grids.
Yeah.
Do yourself a favor and find ones that you like without grids.
Okay, so this is a cool website, but I don't want to register. It says it's free, but I don't want to register. I'm going to go to Reddit.
There are also lots of map tools out there where you can build your own. Like I personally like to use Dungeon Fog to make my maps. It's a $7 a month subscription to use, and it's wonderful for map creation. So
I downloaded my map. It was on the download bar in Chrome. I dragged, I dropped, and now I'm going to move it. Now I'm going to kind of decide to myself, because this is a gridless map, how big do I want stuff to be? So I can just kind of drag it until it's as big as I want. But, maybe I need a flump for reference.
One thing that I noticed when I was trying to poke around with building a room was that if you drag and drop the map onto the grid, the image just gets resized, like the ratios get changed and all of that.
Yes.
And I found like
Yes.
the easiest way to not let that happen is to just hold down the Alt key, and it seems like it maintains its ratio as you're dropping it, and then yeah, so like it prevents the snapping, and then you can resize it and like dragging it, and that maintains the ratio, I think.
So I'm going to demonstrate what you just described. If you pull something from your media, it's going to be all messed up. As you can see, the aspect ratio is totally wrong. Yeah.
Oh, does that only happen when you pull it from there, not from...
Well, if you pull it from there, that's where it happens. But like you said, when I did it with the Alt key, it maintained the original ratio.
Also, Jeremy, we had a question about Fog of War. So when you have your room build, we'll throw some Fog of War in there.
All right. So I usually just like to drag it and let it snap, especially if it doesn't have tiles on it already.
Yeah.
But here's the, I mean, there are tools that can resize a map with tiles that you can play with that we have linked on our DMs getting started section of our Discord server. But the best tip I can give people is, if you know the number of tiles that your image is, then just size the map to be, however big you want it to be. So if it's 21 by 22, then make it 21 by 22. And instead of using the corners, use the sides to drag your image around. Okay, that's going to make sure that it hits exactly to where you want it to. Okay, now this is not a great example, but it actually doesn't look that bad. Now, when I'm done, because this is a map, I want to move it to the map layer. Or I could have just moved to the map layer, and that way we can see the grid. Now, that said, if you don't like the grid, you don't have to use it. You can go into the quick settings here, and you can shut off the grid.
You can also change the color to make it a little easier to see.
Yeah, and you can even change the measurements, but we're going to use 5e. Yeah, you can choose the color. Ooh, purple. Ooh, not really.
I tend to, like, on lighter maps, I use black squares. On darker maps, I use white squares. It just depends on the map you're using.
Okay, actually, that looks nice. Okay, so someone talked about Fog of War. Okay, I'm not going to talk about dynamic lighting because you have to spend a lot of time building your maps for it and, showing where walls are and such. But I'll go with the legacy lighting and enable the Fog of War. Now, the Fog of War can be a little buggy. And right now, you'll notice that the whole image got a lot darker. So as a player joining this room, they would see complete black. They would see nothing. And then on your toolbox on the left-hand side, there is the fog. There are tools here to reveal areas, to do like a polygon reveal where you can choose point to point to point where you want to reveal, or you can hide areas. So for example, if I want to reveal, you'll notice that the fog has turned into an eye symbol, and then you just click and drag where you would like to show things. And if I went too far, I can undo what I've done, or at least try to, by using either reset fog, which will put black everywhere, and sometimes you have to fight with it to get the reveal to work, you can go hide area, and maybe I just want to hide that little table thing. So when a player joins, they would only see certain sections. Let's see here. Yeah, we talked about auras, hit points, all that sort of stuff. I guess the only other thing that Dungeon Masters are going to show people are handouts. So you can put handouts in the journal by clicking add a handout, and then you can drag any files that you want. So maybe I want to show people this map as a handout. I can just drag any image there, and I can say it's a mysterious map. Yes, but your players can't see it. Remember, if you look on the journal and you don't see the blue dot at the end, nobody can see it. Or if you don't see a dot, because you can control when you click edit
exactly
whose journal it's in, right? So you can say it's in everyone's journal, but that doesn't mean they can edit it unless you give them permission to. The other thing too is you can then click show to players, and that will then force this handout to pop up in the middle of their virtual tabletop. And if they click on the image, it will then, give them this kind of full screen preview mode. It will then, I just hit escape to make it disappear, but then it's going to be in their journal as long, again, as it is set to be in there. But if I click remove, then you'll notice the blue dot disappears and it's not being shared with anyone. If you have a long-running campaign, you might want to create folders. You might even want to create different rooms, just as you get a lot more content. And you might want to hide some things from the players so that their handout section doesn't get too cluttered. All right, so just before we finish, we'll talk about some tips and tricks, just quick, with, again, from a player's perspective and a dungeon master's perspective as to how you can help those players, do what they want to do. So one thing that we do in our games is we create a token as a safety tool for the game. It's a tool of the table, so to speak. We call it the X card, and I don't know why it's not moving. There it is.
Yeah, you're just dragging the wrong spot.
Yeah, I mean, it depends if you're in a public play setting or if you're playing with new people, but having some ground rules or some sort of code of conduct is always good. And we have a token where basically if you put anybody can put the token on the map because everybody has control. And if they throw the X card down on the table, it means let's have a chat about what's going on at the table, because maybe someone's being vulgar, maybe we're dealing with monsters like spiders that people are afraid of, like deathly, and maybe we'll just change them to rats or cats or something like that. Or maybe the subject matter of the game is bothersome. Maybe you're dealing with finding a lost pet, or someone's recently passed away and you're witnessing a funeral, and if that hits a nerve, then throw the X card down, have the conversation, and just so that everybody knows, players and dungeon master, that it's just a game. We can pause it, we can talk about it, and make sure everyone's having this safe and fun time.
At the end of the day, we just want everybody to be having fun. So
Yeah.
some things. So we like to have that tool in our games so that to make sure everybody keeps having fun.
And it's good, like I was saying earlier, to try to build, from your own experience, a template of a room in Roll20 as a dungeon master that you can pull from. My players love flumps. They love them as pets, familiar, all that kind of stuff. Maybe they got some cool certificates from Adventures League, or maybe they walked down the wrong hallway and got polymorphed into one in a true
Wild
fashion.
Magic Surge threw a bunch of them in.
Yeah. So, or maybe you like to wild shape, or maybe you have mounts, pets, familiars, vehicles, or anything like that. But it's always good, if you haven't set it up already, to just either it might be worth buying the monster manual, for example, for Roll20, or if you have recurring games that turn into a campaign where players are going to have familiars, might as well get the token for it, give them access to it so they can be rolling it around and having fun with it until, of course, you do 1 point of damage and take it off the map and make them sad.
Just pick a spell at random that does a 40-foot diameter and 8d6 fire damage.
Oh, of course. And then, this is one of my older rooms, so I was just pulling in some spells as needed. But as I was mentioning earlier, it's great to start with a template, but I did have a pro tip I was going to talk about, and that DMs have available to them when they're a subscriber to Roll20, and that is called the Transmogrifier. Really cool name that is not descriptive of what it does at all.
So true.
So what's the Transmogrifier? Okay, so on the right-hand side, I have the room that I'm in. On the left-hand side, I can pick any other room that I have built and all of the assets within it. And I can drag and drop. What do I want?
Just pick a random spell and
I'm going to
add
pick a
the
random
token.
spell, add the token, and what do we got? Boom! Yeah, like magic. It's super fast, and you can move stuff in between rooms.
Yeah, Transmogrifier is pretty good for that.
Yeah.
Also, while you're on that screen, Jeremy, if you want to turn chat tech back on so that we can show people quickly how to turn off that camera the first time you open a Roll20 room and the DM hasn't done it for you.
All right. Okay, so you can see that I got a camera going on here in the bottom screen there. As a dungeon master, yeah, you probably don't want to rely on the Roll20 chat. We've just had a lot of bad experience with it. We tend to like Discord. As a player, you can also go into your settings and shut it off as well, but you can also, in Google, you can not give it access. You can always block the camera and microphone for Roll20 if you'd like to handle it that way as well. And whenever the DM changes it, the whole virtual tabletop will refresh for everybody.
To answer your question quickly, Greg, yes, if you hold Alt when you move anything on the map, it will snap it to exactly where you want. It won't snap to grid.
Yeah, that is a great tip. Probably the best tip I can give to anybody is before clicking on something, make sure you have the selector on.
How many times do you see people with the ruler trying to pick up their token and drawing lines? It's
totally. Oh yeah, hey, why can't I pick this up?
So we've got a couple minutes left. Is there any questions, anything that we went over that we could spend a few more seconds on, or anything that you would want to chat about Roll20 or in general that we talked about or didn't?
Yes, I have a question. Maybe a very, very basic question. When you create your room, your game, then I imagine you have a link that you send by email or some other means to your players.
That's right.
The players keep their characters on their own Roll20 account and then join the game with that character?
Character imports, Jeremy.
Yes. So I'll go back to sharing screen for a moment. And I'm going to go back to the game. All right. So if someone's joining your game, then they should go to the character vault. And if their character vault is empty, then they should be importing a character into their character vault, assuming they have a character somewhere else. Or if they create a character in the room that you've just created, they can do the same. They can import that character. So for example, I have this Dragonborn Bard in Tier 1. I can then choose a game to export them to. So if they're coming to your game for the first time and they have a character from somewhere else, if they have their character in the character vault, they can choose the game that it came from, or that they want it to go to, rather, sorry, and they can export it to your game. You will then have to give them access to that character sheet and token that's come along with it, if there is a token, before they will be able to use it.
Also, every time you create a room or copy a room, you have to turn character imports on in every single room.
So that is in the game settings. Before you enter, always allow people to import their characters, turn it on to yes. And I made the rookie mistake of not having that on. Make sure you save it too.
Yep, scroll down and save.
And of course, if people are having problems not being able to create their characters on Roll20 or D&D Beyond is not working, it might be because you didn't set the character sheet template to D&D 5th edition. That's another really important thing you have to make sure you have on. If you've purchased content, then you can use these settings to share it or not. Good question, though.
So any last minute things before we end, because it is 8 o'clock?
Well, I just wanted to mention that if you had more questions and you want to find us online, the easiest place to find us is if you go to unitethefactions.com. From there, you can find links to our Discord server, as well as our Facebook page if you want to follow us there, or our email newsletter. You can also come back. Yeah, our Twitter. Yeah, all that sort of stuff. Most of the action these days is happening on Discord, as we've mentioned. I'll just put our website there. And of course, we're doing, we're here once a month with a Dungeons and Dragons event with fan meetups. Sometimes it's a chat like this. Sometimes it's a live play event, or it might be a bigger event where we host a multi-table interactive adventure called an epic or a competitive adventure. So yeah, you can totally, find out more by, coming back to these events again. And eventually, once everything goes back to in-person, we will be hosting in-person events.
Can't wait.
Yeah, can't wait. Can't wait for Fan Expo again. We were there a couple years ago running like 20 tables worth of D&D all weekend, even after hours, so when you're conned out all day, it's not over. After the con hours, come to the D&D area. We'll be playing there for sure.
Just because, who doesn't like to run D&D for, 48 hours over 4 days? Right, Carlo?
Is that I've been that guy at a lot of other conventions. So yeah, we certainly can't wait. But in the meantime, and even, after, we go back to in-person play, we'll certainly be putting on events on our Discord server as well.
We're going to try to keep our online events going, obviously not as frequently as we are now, but we're going to keep trying to do a few online events here and there. But once we get back to being in person, we're going to want to pretty much be in person.
Oh, for sure. We'd love to host an event at Stormcrow Manor.
Yeah.
Again, because it's not going to be our first time.
No, but we want to do the other one this time.
Yes, totally. An adventure about a tavern in a tavern. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Oh yeah, the Dungeon Burger is the way to go at Stormcrow, 100%, James.
Yeah, it's the only way to go. It's the only way to go. Definitely collect all the cards. All right, so thanks everybody for joining us. Again, come back to fan meetups to see more events about Dungeons & Dragons and lots of other cool fan stuff. And if you want to, join up on our server, hit up unitethefactions.com and have a great weekend.
Have a good weekend, everyone. Thanks for watching. I hope you guys found what we said was somewhat insightful.
Definitely. Thanks, Angelo.
See you, everyone.
Bye, everyone.